to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Great again. Great again.
Hey guys, we had to check the volume for a second. Thank you for joining the American Tribune Live. Breaking news. This was all happening yesterday. We couldn't not talk about it. Rhino representative from Texas, Dan Crenshaw, suffers an absolute meltdown on X, formerly known as Twitter, and it is glorious. Folks, I'm not the only one to say it, not the first one to say it, but I will say it again. Without Elon Musk buying Twitter from the leftist hordes, freeing X as a space to get out real truth, real journalism, none of this happens. Go back 2 weeks ago, we did a breakdown on Joni Ernst. We thought she was bad. We thought maybe she was going to take over Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham's spot. Yes, that was all true. And then welcome aboard, Dan Crenshaw. Today is your week, Lieutenant Dan. You are now exposed. The grift is over, folks. So many of these fake Republicans are getting called out for their BS, their lies, their hatred of you, their apathy towards your well-being. And it is wonderful. And we should all be celebrating this. I got an entire show today, folks. We're going to cover everything about Dan Crenshaw. We're going back in the Wayback Machine. We've got clips of him saying ridiculous things, going after children, kicking reporters, talking about his insider stock trading, and he'll downplay that. It's truly incredible. But we got to start with this clip right here. This is what set the internet off. And, you know, they must be dumb, or they're just so full of themselves. Who thought this would be a good idea to post? And we'll play the video that prompted this response right here. But this is an elected official. This is a congressman, and he's acting like a child because, yes, they are all children there. They don't care about you. They're unable to care about you. Truly incredible stuff here. And I'm going to censor myself. I'm just going to read this. If you're not on X, you haven't been tuning in for the last 24 hours, I don't blame you. You're working. You're raising a family. You're taking care of your house. So maybe you're not plugged in, but this is what we've got to talk about today. Dan Crenshaw, he's done. His career is done, at least in politics. He'll be fine. He'll land at some Raytheon or Northrop Grumman or Boeing. No worries for Dan and his paycheck. He'll go make way more money selling out to the military-industrial complex. I have no doubt about that. But in terms of representing the American people, patriots are fed up and they've had it. So this is what Dan Crenshaw wrote on Twitter, and I'm gonna share my screen, folks. We just have to scroll through the replies to some of this. It is wonderful. And again, without X, yeah, get to the point. Do you like to hear yourself talk or what? Yeah, Dan Crenshaw likes to hear himself talk for sure. But he called out just a guy on Twitter, just a guy on X, saying, hey, Dan, so much for that 40% pay raise you're trying to sneak in that continuing resolution. As Elon Musk said, how is this a continuing resolution? A CR is supposed to just be status quo, and somehow you got a 40% pay raise snuck in there. So is that a new budget? Is that a CR? What's going on with that? Dan Crenshaw wrote on X, this is what prompted it all. This is what prompted our show today. Yeah, or maybe you're an effing lying piece of S because I'm not even on the yes list for the whip team, never have been, but hey, whatever gets you pathetic bottom feeders, your clickbait effing incels. Again, an elected congressman representing folks. I've been told time and again that Donald Trump isn't fit to be president because he said things about women one time, or he acts a certain way, or he talks a certain way. That's not befitting of the office of the President of the United States. And then leftists are absolutely quiet as Dan Crenshaw writes this, far worse than anything Donald Trump has ever done in office. But they don't care. It is not about the fitting of the office. It's all about their hatred, their brainwashing, the contempt that is created by hoaxes from the media about Donald Trump. No principles, no values. They don't care about that. So they're going to be quiet about Dan Crenshaw's complete meltdown on X here. But again, he said this to the American people. All we want If you want limited government, if you want the federal government to give you back more power, more of your money, stop sending tax dollars overseas, if you want the government to at least secure the border, because that is one of the only functions of the federal government is to keep you safe, he's telling you that you're an effing incel. Oh, you want to abide by the Constitution? You're an incel. You're a piece of S. You're effing this. You're effing that. Dan Crenshaw hates you. He absolutely hates you. We're going to expose all of them today. When I finish up the show, I will get a long thread on X. I'll compile all this in a shorter form so you don't have to listen to 90 minutes of me talking about it. But we'll get all the videos up there. We'll get all the screenshots up there. So you can go over to X, bookmark it, share it with your family members and friends. And I got to say, folks, I've been saying it for a long time. It is not the Democrat Party that represents the greatest threat to the America First movement and your freedoms. Not the Democrats. Yeah, they've been in charge the last 4 years in the White House. They've been doing their things. They got control of all the cultural institutions in the country. But when it comes to Donald Trump's America First agenda, Democrats are not in power. They do not control the Senate. They do not control the House. We're not even going to be able to talk about Mike Johnson today. Mike Johnson is done as well. Now we got some awesome stories coming about Rand Paul endorsing Elon Musk for Speaker of the House. Because again, you do not have to be an elected official to be Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson is out. But again, we can't cover all that today. He was trying to lie to you about, I got to pass the CR because reasons. I got to give money to my colleagues, got to give them a pay raise, got to give money to Ukraine and all that nonsense. But Republicans, and when I say Republican, Dan Crenshaw, Mike Johnson, that's what I think of when I think of Republican. Republicans are the uniparty. They are the sellouts. They're the rhinos. I need someone to be America First, period. If you have an R behind your name, I assume you're a sellout. I assume you're corrupt. I assume you're just like Dan Crenshaw. You're just not dumb enough to post it on social media yet. Oh, and folks, we got to call it out. We got Helen in the chat. Do not reply to Helen. Helen is a troll. We are going to delete Helen really fast here because we're over on Facebook. We don't need that nonsense in our thread. Yeah, I got to point out Christina's comment while we're cleaning up the chat. Getting called out on the corruption they continue. They have forgotten they work for we the people. Yeah, you know what? Maybe Crenshaw went into office with good intent. I will say this about his military service. Thank you for serving, Dan Crenshaw. He wears the eye patch because of what happened in service. I am not going to get into name calling. Yes, he's got, I will say, a funny name, Eye Patch McCain. It fits really well because John McCain, Dan Crenshaw, just complete sellouts in the establishment. But we're not making fun of his service. I thank him for his service. We're not degrading what he did in the military. It's just like our commentary on Tim Walz. Thank you for serving in the National Guard in whatever capacity you did, Tim Walz. It's when they get into public service that we are focusing on. I don't care that Dan Crenshaw was a Navy SEAL. I care that he's an elected congressman. So we are going after him today for what he has done since he got into Congress. We got Chad writing here. If that's a complete meltdown, I'd like to refer you to half a dozen Democrats that screamed and whined and told people to get in your face and not let you have a moment. Yeah, absolutely, Chad. I mean, we are spending time focusing on rhinos because, again, it is rhinos that will be the major impediment to the Trump agenda. You had Senator Joni Ernst just a couple of weeks ago saying, I'm not sure about confirming the nomination of Pete Hegseth. Democrats are not in control of the Senate. If we are going to get Trump's nominees confirmed, it needs to be Republicans that do it. Yeah, Democrats are their own problem. They're all insane. My show on Tuesday was how they refuse to learn because they are absolutely unhinged in their religious worldview. And yes, if you're a Democrat, you do have a religion. It is progressivism. It is leftism. It is communism. It is worshiping the state. All of that, Chad, spot on comment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. I just did my episode on Tuesday about Dems. They are unable to learn from their mistakes. Their meltdowns about the election are glorious as well. They can't understand that Americans are fed up with DEI. They're fed up with open borders. They're fed up with all this taxation and sending your tax dollars overseas. Yeah, Democrats are their own complete mess. Those are definitely meltdowns. Today, we're talking about the Dan Crenshaw meltdown. I got to delete one more comment from Helen. Don't reply to Helen. She's not interested in getting to know you as a person. If she says that you're a good-looking person like me, I know she's lying. But here we go. Let's get into Dan Crenshaw here. Let's get the video that prompted this insane reply. This was a commentary on why he needs a pay raise, because you need to feel bad for Dan Crenshaw. He hasn't had a pay raise in Congress since 2009. He's barely making ends meet with $180,000 of your tax dollars given to his salary, lifetime of benefits. Poor Dan. He's served long enough in Congress now that he will always have access to the gold standard of medical health care treatment thanks to serving in Congress. I feel so bad for him having access to information to trade stocks before the rest of us retail investors get access to it. Poor Dan. But here he is. This is the clip that prompted his reply because Americans were like, pump the brakes, Dan. This is absolutely wild.
Congress members trading stocks?
Yeah, I mean, this is like number 1,000 on my priority list of things to care about. This is one of those stupid things that I've been dragged through the mud on. You know how much fucking money I've ever had in the stock market? About $20,000. And yet I've been.
Hold on to that thought there. Dan Crenshaw is going to tell you $20,000 on the stock market. Not true. We got a fact check for that coming up in just a second here, but he's trying to downplay stock. It gets even worse. He tries to downplay insider trading in Congress, which even if you're a normie Democrat voter, you're like, why are these guys making millions of dollars on stock trades when their job is to limit the government if they're going to abide by the Constitution? So it gets better. Take a listen.
Dragged through the mud on this as if like there's some insider trading. I just sent a letter to Fox News, a threatening letter from my lawyers, threatening them with defamation because Jesse Waters had basically insinuated that I was insider trading.
Insinuated, I can tell you for a fact that they have information before we do. And here's the kicker, folks. If you want to go to the AmericanTribune.news, we have an entire article on this on our Substack. It is not illegal, by the way, for these folks to do what we call insider trading. It is not illegal because they pretend that they have to sit on committees and get access to information to make legislation, more rules for your life. They need that information before you so that they can be well informed. And you know what they do with that information? Then they go profit on it by buying certain stocks. Everyone's like Nancy Pelosi. Do the Nancy Pelosi stock trading follow. Just get the Pelosi portfolio. You'll be set for life. And that is true. Nancy Pelosi is the face of insider stock trading, but she is far from the only one. I've got a graphic for you folks. It's on our Substack at the AmericanTribune.news. It's making the rounds on X right now. It is not illegal for them to do this. And that is also part of the problem. If you serve in Congress, you should have to have a blind portfolio. You should either have to invest in the total index funds, sell off individual stocks. It needs to be made illegal to do this. That is also part of the problem. But Dan Crenshaw doesn't want to present real solutions like that.
Of course, it's not true. You'd be more surprised how much little information we have. This is one of those bills that, like, of course, yeah, people support it. Yeah, sure, okay. Who cares? Because I don't.
The American people care. That's who cares. The elitism, the snobbery, the just brushing it away. Dan, we all care. We care that we send you to Congress to supposedly represent us and then enrich yourselves by having access to what he calls little information. Well, you know what? Even if we accept that that's true, that they just get a little bit of information before the rest of us, why is that even fair? You should have zero information before the rest of us if you're going to profit off of it. Again, if you need access to that information for whatever made-up reason, fine, but then don't profit off of it. Even if you find out just an iota of information a day in advance, that makes all the difference compared to us retail investors that are always the last to know. We see these stocks going up, we're like, maybe we'll get in. And then it turns out you guys got in a week ago, a day ago, and you saw the biggest increases. So I don't even care how much information they have access to. The fact that they have any access to information and then profit off of it, that is the problem. But again, Dan is just downplaying it. No, it's not a lot. No, it's not that big of a deal. It's only $20,000. That is false. I will show that to you in just a second. But again, it is just ignoring all the legitimate complaints that we, the people, have. So much. We are exposing so much of Dan Crenshaw today. Let's keep going.
I barely have anything in the market anyway. Are there a couple cases like wherein Nancy Pelosi has some very suspicious timing of her trades? Yeah, that has happened. But nobody else can point any other examples out.
Again, I'm going to show a graphic. I can point out lots of examples. And you know who's leading the chart? It's Republicans, too. All these people that were like, hey, they represent us. They're Republicans. They're not Democrats. No. Republicans are some of the worst insider traders in Congress.
So, sure. Yeah, why not? Don't let us trade stocks. How about we'll just keep whipping ourselves. How about we don't make any money either? How about like just cut our paychecks? We haven't gotten a pay raise since 2008, even a COLA increase. So, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's make Congress a place where only the millionaires can actually afford to do the job. This is a wonderful idea. Let's just keep doing that, and then some it's always some.
Do you realize he is justifying insider trading because woe is me, I'm just a poor congressperson. Again, their base salary is $180,000. Wouldn't you like to make $180,000 to work less than half a year? These dudes clock in for like 140 days per year. They make $180,000, but woe is me. And then he's trying to play the victim card of, I don't make enough money to do this job. Guess what, Dan? You know what the solution to that is? Go get a real job. You don't have to serve in Congress. You chose to run for election. You chose to represent us, the people, and it was never intended to be a career. So if you don't like the money, if you don't like the lifetime healthcare benefits that you've received, if you don't like all the access to information on stock trades before the rest of us, then don't do it. Then don't be in Congress. It is so simple. If you don't like the money you're making, and we say this all the time to the rest of the real world, if you don't like your job, if you don't like your salary, if you're not happy at work, go get a different job. I feel zero pity for Dan Crenshaw. It is astounding that he wants to be the victim in this conversation. Being an elected official is one of the most privileged positions you could hold. It is easy work. You don't get your hands dirty. You barely go to work anyways, and then you get paid $180,000, and I'm supposed to feel bad for you? I got one more comment to make. Let's finish up the Crenshaw clip, and then I got more commentary.
Right, who senses the populist energy, and then mirrors it, believing that this is what's going to help me connect with the people. Because what do the people want? Well, they want an easy button. All my problems will be solved if there's no stock trading. All my problems will be solved if there's term limits. Yeah, but if you think about any of these things for 5 whole minutes, you might quickly come to a different conclusion.
He is downplaying some of the easiest solutions in Congress right now. Would term limits solve all the corruption? Would it shrink government? Not all of it, but why can't we do term limits, Dan? You tell me a reason why we shouldn't do term limits and how that would be worse than what we have right now. Again, just ignoring the real problems of America. He's calling you stupid. He says if you want to ban insider trading and get term limits on Congress, you're stupid. How about those are fantastic ideas? Let's start there. Dan Crenshaw hates you. He hates your ideas. He doesn't care what you think. Yes, we should have term limits. And by that measure, Dan Crenshaw would be out. But the good news is Dan Crenshaw is going to get out anyways because the American people hate this. They hate their elected officials calling them incels. They hate being called stupid by the people that are supposed to represent their interests. Richard writes here, voters should determine salary and benefits of elected government employees. I saw a comment that said they should get the median salary of the employees in their state. And so if you're an elected official from California, whatever that median salary is congratulations, that's what you get to make. You're right in the middle of all your constituents. If you're down in Texas, Alabama, wherever it may be, you get the median salary of state employee wages. I'm going to go a step further. He complained that we would only have millionaires in Congress if they didn't have a living wage. I'm sorry that you can't live off $180,000. He says that's a bad idea. Folks, buckle up because I've got a radical idea too. I think it would almost be better if we did just have the millionaires. Back when the country was founded, we had this notion of a landed aristocracy, a landed gentry, and these people understood their responsibility. Donald Trump we can't articulate it sometimes. We don't know why we like Donald Trump, but Donald Trump embodies this mindset of someone that has been successful in life and wants to give back to his community. Donald Trump speaks to his gardeners. There's stories out there about him talking to one of his gardeners. He's like, hey, man, who should my vice presidential pick be? Donald Trump can relate to people. He can show up at McDonald's, learn how to shake the fries from some 18-year-old kid. He can show up in a garbage truck. We all know Donald Trump's a billionaire, but his ability to represent his care and concern for the regular American person, that's why his message appealed and resonated so much with us back in 2015. He wasn't like a normal politician. I would argue this is a good thing. I want someone in Congress who has demonstrated an ability to be successful, manage their estate, manage their wealth, and then have the notion of noblesse oblige where you give back to your community. I don't want AOC bartenders. I don't want whatever Cory Bush did before getting into Congress and running on these communist ideas of we the people. We need to return to a format, I would argue, where we have a wealthy class doing what is in the best interest of the country. You think back to 150 years ago, 200 years ago, you would have some landed folks, and they would maintain that property. They would take care of the people that worked on that property. They wanted their communities to thrive because as their employees were successful, so too were they successful. When AOC has never been an adult in her entire life, never really had a job, never managed any money, she is not qualified to then balance a federal budget that is in the trillions of dollars. And she also doesn't care about the working class. She wants to climb the ladder for herself. Dan Crenshaw doesn't care about you. He has not demonstrated an ability to be above the rest. He represents the exact opposite of my argument. This is a man that looks down on you. This is a man that thinks you are stupid. He thinks that you are an effing incel if you disagree with him on term limits, on insider trading, on congressional salary raises. He is the opposite of what I am arguing for. Donald Trump, even though he's a billionaire, has a better idea of how to support the American people and do what's right by the American people than everyman Dan Crenshaw. So that's my argument, folks. I want to get back to where we were years ago, where it was the elites in Congress who would go there, didn't need the salary, didn't need the corruption because they already had money that they had created and generated and were maintaining, and then they would go back to their estate and manage that again. So they didn't need to be in Washington, D.C. Yeah, Michael writes, primary this guy as soon as possible. Oh, and we got to get rid of Carol. Don't talk to Carol. We're going to delete her and block her. But absolutely right. This guy is done. I got to show you this map. In no particular order, we're just going to kind of run through all the amazing Dan Crenshaw stuff today. Sorry, we're just cleaning up the chat a little bit. Don't talk to Helen. Don't talk to Carol. They're not interested in getting to know you as a real person. Take a look at this map. Again, we're going to bounce around a little bit. This is Dan Crenshaw's congressional district. You tell me how this makes sense. Gerrymandering is awful. Both sides do it. Everybody does it. How does Dan Crenshaw, if you look at the visual here, he's in the Houston area, but he's got the nice little suburbs. They said, hey, we don't want to go to downtown Houston. That's a solidly blue district. I think Jasmine Crockett is right next door to him as well. So you have insane Jasmine Crockett, and you got this nice little carved out community for Dan Crenshaw. But what a world. What a map right there. We need to get back to a different form of representation because this makes absolutely no sense. When Texas got more congressional representation because people are moving to freer states, they are fleeing states like California, they said, how can we ensure that this is a Republican district? And they took a little pencil and they went along all these little roads where they knew they'd have Republican voters, but pure insanity right here. If this is a Republican district, then all you voters in this area, wake up. Dan Crenshaw doesn't represent you. This dude is done. He is toast. Joni Ernst is done. Talked about her 2 weeks ago. Dan Crenshaw is done. We talked about that as well. All right. And then the replies, like I said, are just glorious. So Crenshaw was taking heat from pretty much everybody. And if you're familiar with the X account Cat Turd, number one, he is not anonymous. He doesn't use his real name on social media handles. He's been on Tucker. He's done interviews. You could easily look him up. Dude with a beard, big hat down in Florida. But Dan Crenshaw, because he is so out of touch, so aloof, again, doesn't care to learn, calls this dude anonymous. He says, anonymous coward like Cat Turd taking S without any evidence. I'm used to it. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw is so tough. Sorry I was a guy fighting the wars that little bees like you would never dare to. One of us has actually served the country and continues to, while losers like you make money being trolls on social media. I prefaced my comments today because of this. Dan Crenshaw thinks that his service in the military is a shield from all of the corruption that he engages in. And again, we are separating the two facets of Crenshaw's adult life. Military service, nobody's talking about it. Look, he wears an eye patch. I think they unfairly go after him for wearing the eye patch. He lost an eye because of military service. I am not making fun of him for that. I commend him for his sacrifice. Thank you, Dan, for doing that. But I am not talking about your military service. But Crenshaw, because he has nothing else, he can't defend his arguments. He says, I'm going to put on my military uniform. I'm free of criticism. You can't touch me. I served in the Navy SEALs. I lost an eye, so you can't criticize all the corruption, all the awful things that I do. I vote for money to go to Ukraine. I vote alongside Democrats. I basically vote yes on every piece of legislation that comes my way. The people getting rich off politics are the influencers, like Cat Turd, selling their platforms to the highest bidder. And again, I think he's being disingenuous. Dan Crenshaw must certainly know how this works. Accounts like Cat Turd are popular because they resonate with a large audience. We all support Cat Turd's message, and if we didn't, we wouldn't follow him. It is really that simple. It is a free marketplace of ideas over on X. If you have good ideas, you will be followed. It is as simple as that. Is he selling his platform to the highest bidder? I don't know how that's possible because Cat Turd makes money on replies, on views, and since a lot of people like his views, they like his comments, then he gets richer off of that. It is really that simple. But Dan Crenshaw, because he is a child, has to put on the uniform, has to call you names. He cannot defend any of his positions. He'll just call you stupid when you're like, hey, Dan, maybe some of the things the American people are talking about are legitimate. And I said I would share this community note. I think it's going to get blocked by my overlay here. So there's the video you saw. There's a clip of that talking about how he only makes $20,000 on the stock market at any time. But the community note, the fact check over on X said this is false. Dan Crenshaw has at least $150,000 on the stock market. Do you know who would know that more than anybody else? Is Dan Crenshaw. So he is lying to you. It is not that hard because they have to submit all of this paperwork when they engage in a stock trade, when they invest money in the stock market. It's all public record. And so all the folks do at the community note section on X are like, okay, well, let's take a look at Dan Crenshaw's portfolio. And it turns out he has way more than $20,000. Crenshaw knows that. He knows that he's lying to you. He doesn't care. All right, where do we want to go next? I love this Tucker Carlson. Actually, I got one more image here, and then we'll get back to the videos, folks. So you want to talk sleazy. And again, it's not just Dan Crenshaw that does this. I think we had another comment earlier from Chad. Chad was like, let's talk about Democrats too. Absolutely, they all do this. But we're focusing on Dan today. And here is Dan's corruption. Here's a report from the Daily Caller that says Dan Crenshaw, his campaign paid a firm that employs his wife to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, maybe his wife is a fantastic campaign manager. Maybe she creates great ads. But you got to ask yourself, what are the odds? What are the odds that Dan Crenshaw's wife is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars that his campaign will raise and he will funnel back into his own family? Yes, it has the appearance of business. But if you pause for just a second and you think, Dan Crenshaw was just complaining about not making enough money. He was downplaying insider trading. Might he find ways to make more money since woe is me, I'm a victim. I don't get paid enough to steal and lie and cheat you people. Funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars to his wife's firm, that raises a few red flags. And again, that's probably one you can't prove because yes, she probably worked on the campaign. She probably did something, but at the same time, let's ban this as well. If I'm going to rail on Hunter Biden having over 200 LLCs because dad is vice president or senator or president, I'm going to rail on Dan Crenshaw too for having a wife start a company to manage campaigns and then you go out and raise tons of money for your campaigns every 2 years. So shady stuff right there as well. Let us go to Tucker Carlson though. This is Tucker's breakdown of Dan Crenshaw. Again, this is making the rounds again on social media. I think this clip is from a year ago, maybe earlier in the spring. Still irrelevant because Dan Crenshaw is still a POS. Take a listen to Tucker's takedown.
Truly left-wing member of Congress I've ever met personally is a Republican from this area who has no interest in the United States whatsoever and does not even pretend. I'm not going to name names. Oh, I think that's right. Yeah, it's Dan Crenshaw, the most liberal, most left-wing person I've ever met in the Congress. I'm just being serious. I mean, structurally, how does that happen?
Throw on some cowboy boots and you buy a shotgun and go out there and take a picture shooting at some pheasants and you learn how to speak the lingo a little bit, watch a little bit of Tucker Carlson. Now you know what to say, how to deceive exactly, and you find yourself in a position of power, kneecapping people on the right time after time after time. Our controlled opposition problem is so bad, and that's why we always feel like we're playing tug of war with Whoopi Goldberg. It just doesn't feel like you can win.
Wyoming is the most Republican state in the United States. They elected Liz Cheney, who just endorsed Kamala Harris time and time again.
This is where I'm going to get myself in hot water as well. Jesse Kelly, the other guy speaking there, the guy that was fired up about, again, pretending to be a Republican. If you just put a shotgun in your hands, you say, I value life, I think transgenderism is insane. All you got to do is say those three things. And a lot of voters are like, that's my guy. I'm voting for a Republican because that's how I feel about some of these cultural issues. And yes, those are important issues. But where I get in trouble and what Jesse Kelly is saying is a lot of this is on voters as well. And I understand the game is rigged against us. They control the media. They control who has access to the media. So Dan Crenshaw, he makes lots of appearances on CNN. They love Dan Crenshaw. They want people to think this is a typical Republican. They want to ignore the America First movement altogether. So yes, I know the game is rigged. I know how it works. When we were watching the 2022 midterms, you had Blake Masters in Arizona. I always mispronounce her name, from Alaska, Kelly Shabika. Mitch McConnell withheld funds from America First Senate candidates to ensure that he would remain in the Senate minority and retain his leadership position. I know how the game works. I understand all that. But there's no excuse in 2024 to be ignorant of the issue and ignorant of the politicians. I put a lot of this on voters now, and I know that's not going to sound fair, but voters, every 2 years, you have a chance to get rid of folks like Dan Crenshaw. Wyoming finally got rid of Liz Cheney, and that's what I'm saying. Like, if people pay attention, if we can generate enough momentum over on X, if we can get enough buzz out there, it can be done. Wyoming finally woke up and they said, wow, Liz Cheney loves wars. She's never seen a war she didn't like. She wants to endorse Kamala Harris. Maybe we'll get rid of her. So they sent Harriet Hageman, who is amazing. Harriet Hageman is awesome. We should have a Congress full of Harriet Hagemans. We should have a Congress full of Thomas Masseys. The only reason we don't, though, if you trust the election process enough, and when it comes to primaries, maybe there's some shenanigans going on in the general election. I am sure there are shenanigans going on. But if it's too big to rig, like we saw with the election of Donald Trump, then it doesn't matter. Voters in these districts, if you live where Dan Crenshaw represents you, honestly, there's no more excuse at this point. You need to read up on the candidates. You need to follow other candidates. Oh, we got to plug something in, folks. We're losing power fast. All right, live show. It is what it is sometimes. Yeah, honestly, we wouldn't have Dan Crenshaws in Congress if voters didn't send them to Congress. So we got to do that. William writes, we really need to get rid of Lindsey Graham as well. To my point, it's on South Carolina voters to just be like, I am done sending Lindsey Graham to Washington, D.C. Yeah, he's got all the money. Yeah, he's got all the ads. And I don't want to call the American voters stupid the same way Dan Crenshaw did. So I'm not saying that. But if a political ad is all it takes to sway you, if Lindsey Graham, if Dan Crenshaw just need to pump enough stuff on TV and you're like, it's good enough for me, we need to do a little bit better than that. So I'm kind of on the side of Jesse Kelly. I don't have a clip of him saying it here, but we wouldn't have these folks if American voters didn't put them there in the first place too. So it goes both ways. Acknowledge the corruption, acknowledge the game is rigged, but also acknowledge that voters can't just go to the box and choose someone with an R behind their name. They need to pay attention in the primary process. Okay, let's go to, I just have some clips of Crenshaw being an absolute ass. This is one right here. I think this is here we go. This is him kicking a reporter. Like, who does this? Just take a look at this.
Anymore. Oh, assault! I just witnessed it. You got that on camera? Dan Crenshaw just.
All right, that was short. It happens really fast. I'm gonna play it one more time.
Going, dude. We don't want it anymore. Oh!
See if we can pause it right there. Look at that. Look at this asshat. He is sticking his leg out intentionally as they're going up on stairs because he doesn't like a camera in his face. And I've said it before. I'm gonna say it again here. I haven't said it in a while. This is the only way to treat politicians. They don't deserve your respect. A Thomas Massey deserves a little bit more of your respect. He actually cares about the Constitution. He actually cares about you. But Dan Crenshaw deserves zero respect. We should be in his face. We should be asking him. I don't have a clip here, but there's another one circulating social media like, hey, why are you on the WEF Young Global Leaders Fund? Why are you sending money to Ukraine? And they're screaming at him. And yes, that is appropriate. We should be screaming at these guys. If you don't do the one job I elected you to do, which is to give me freedom and leave me alone, then I'm going to call you out on that. I got Sharon commenting over here. Sharon, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I think this might be directed at me. Once again, who freaking cares what you think? I mean, this is my show. These are my opinions. If you're directing that comment to me, and again, this goes to all the people watching. I appreciate you choosing to watch me. You have lots of options out there. So thank you for tuning into the American Tribune Live. And I don't think my opinions are wrong. You know, if I'm advocating for smaller government, advocating for term limits in the case of responding to Dan Crenshaw's comments, I wish everybody felt that way, to be honest. But it is what it is. Here's another clip of Dan Crenshaw berating a child. This one made the rounds 2 years ago. I can't believe voters sent him back to D.C. after this clip went viral. But flashback to Dan Crenshaw, who had a young girl ask him a question at some little gathering, and he goes off on her. And the entire crowd there, presumably to support Dan Crenshaw, is just like, what the hell?
Who hasn't heard, Crenshaw said, quote, "The most important thing here is that we have important hero archetypes that we look up to. Jesus is a hero archetype, Superman is a hero archetype. Real characters too. I could name 1,000. Rosa Parks, Ronald Reagan, end quote. I can't wrap my head around this.
Well, I'll help you. Put a period after the word Jesus and don't question my faith.
Wow.
Okay, that's...
Way to go, guy!
There's...
You moron.
Look.
Yeah, you don't talk to a
Don't
kid like
question
that.
my faith.
Yeah, boo.
Don't question my faith.
Oh, okay.
You guys can ask questions about all of these things and I will answer them. But don't question my faith.
I can question your faith if this is what you said.
That's...
I just got to say, this is, again, a kid up there pushing back against Dan Crenshaw. I think she was trying to bait him with a question. Doesn't matter in this case. Way to push back as a kid against Dan Crenshaw. And what an absolute clown. Don't question my faith. You can ask me any other question, but don't question my faith. Again, this guy gets so defensive. He thinks he's the victim in every interaction. I don't get paid enough. I'm Christian. Why don't you believe me? Like, absolutely pathetic stuff from Dan Crenshaw.
I mean, you can read the quote again. But nowhere in that quote am I saying Jesus is not real. That's a ridiculous statement. Of course he's the Son of God. Of course he's the Son of God, and of course he's real.
You can say two different things. You can say that on a podcast, and you can say this here.
On the podcast, nobody would have understood it that way. I think you're twisting it that way, which is not very Christ-like.
And notice, I'm playing the clip still. It keeps going. I don't know why it's upside down here. You got to tilt your head a little bit to watch it. He's still engaging with her. He is arguing with a child over apparently having his faith questioned, which nobody was doing in this case. She was reacting to some comments he made, and all you got to do is be like, yes, factually that is true. Men especially need that archetype to aspire to. Jesus Christ is the best archetype possible, but there's nothing wrong with a kid looking at a Superman comic, at least the old ones, not when he's like a gay, bisexual, whatever Superman was turned into nowadays. There's nothing wrong with saying that there are many different examples out there for young people to look at and emulate. You can have Superman who serves the greater good, uses his skills to help people. This is not a bad thing. Even if she was trying to play gotcha and not read the period in the statement, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm saying I don't care. All Crenshaw has to say is like, yes, these are all good examples. Jesus, Superman, he does Ronald Reagan, which of course he does because, sorry folks, Ronald Reagan is not the hero we thought he was. Rosa Parks, yes, that instance of bravery where it was all plotted all along. There were lots of other, and again, I'm not supporting segregation, but if you do a little digging on Rosa Parks, you realize it was all scripted from the beginning. They picked her specifically, even though there had been other instances of bus riding where people said, no, I'm not moving to the back. So Rosa was also fake news at the time, but it was a convenient story, a young mom, more attractive lady than like some old black guy that was not moving anywhere. So they lied to you about that. So of course, Dan Crenshaw promotes the Rosa Parks story. Of course, he promotes Ronald Reagan because Reagan was Mr. Rhino back in the day, said some good stuff, horrible policies. But just yikes. Just say, yeah, these are all good things for us to look up to. But he can't do that because he is so thin-skinned. He's cowardly. He wants to argue with a child in front of everybody else. And again, the room's not having it. And then I just wonder, like, how was anybody having this? This clip should have been disqualifying. This was before X was free. This was before we were able to spread news far and wide. So I think the Crenshaw story is going to play out a little bit differently this time because, look, Americans are just done with it. We've been done with it a long time, but there is such a shift, such a vibe change in this country. You can feel it. It is palpable. We're just not putting up with this nonsense anymore. I think we have a few more seconds of the clip. Let's see what else happened.
Which is not very Christian.
Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon.
It's not. And I'm not going to have my faith questioned. I'm not going to have my faith questioned. Again,
No one's questioning your faith, buddy. Peter writes, agreed, liked him years ago, but that's all changed. Yeah, there are some comments here when we'll share it right now. That's how a lot of us felt. I mean, why wouldn't you get excited? In the end, you got to wonder, controlled opposition. Why was he in the WF? Very convenient that he got a brand new district gerrymandered the hell out of the way just to make sure he got to DC. Maybe it was a plot all along to stick him in there, but you know, you look at the credentials. I'm not a credential guy, but you read the resume at least. You're like, okay, Navy SEAL. I admit you're like Texas. Texas has to be good. Texas politics, though, they have John Cornyn in the Senate. Ted Cruz is good sometimes, but then you got Dan Crenshaw. You're like, okay, maybe he's good. This is around the time of Donald Trump coming office. Okay, America first, former military guy. We always like to give the military vets a little bit more benefit of the doubt. Yeah, there was some wiggle room to have hope, to be optimistic about him. But what a sellout. What an absolute sellout. And what an awful human being. I mean, I played the clip of him tripping the reporter. Now we have the clip here of him yelling at a girl. You had the clip earlier that started this whole meltdown where he is downplaying your legitimate concerns about term limits and insider trading and his salary. He's calling you all stupid and incels. Like, not only do we have bad policies, sellout Crenshaw, you just have a disgusting human being representing you. Man, I'm clearing out the chat again. We got a lot of trolls today. I guess thank you for watching, bots, but here we go. We got more. I wanted to dive into this story just because we are doing the full Crenshaw hour here. We got Milana too. I'm sorry, folks. I have to delete so many of these comments. I'm going to play this clip first. So then there was a little battle between him and Fox's Jesse Waters. Jesse Waters does not seem like the up-and-up guy. Whatever. He is a reporter on Fox. I have not seen Dan Crenshaw take so much anger and hatred out on reporters other than when it comes to Fox News. But I'm going to play this clip first because this is from 2021. Dan Crenshaw appears to respect Jesse Waters' work. He says he likes what he does. I'm going to set all of this other commentary up with this clip first, but take a listen to the tone, take a listen to the interaction, take a watch, and then we're going to fast forward and see how Dan Crenshaw completely sells this out too. So again, he's lying in one of these cases. You can't both be true.
Coming on. Appreciate all you do, Jesse. Great show. People should tune in and watch it. Again, it's entertaining. It's informative. And we're out there fighting the good fight. So hope it's going well with the book. And you guys hope you survive Manhattan as long as you can.
Listen, if I can survive in the Grand Tetons, I can survive Manhattan. Thank you very much, Congressman. And get me an invite to that party next summer, okay?
Okay, so it seemed very cordial. There was Jesse Waters of Fox, a host, and there's Dan Crenshaw being very nice to him. But then Jesse Waters decides to talk about Dan Crenshaw's insider trading stock activity, and then Crenshaw didn't like that. So let's take a listen to the clip that Jesse Waters spoke about Crenshaw in a not so flattering light, and then man, this was another meltdown before the free platform of X took over. So not a lot of people saw this one. Buckle up, folks, because this gets pretty wild as well. Dan Crenshaw did not just recently become a child. He has always been a child.
After a lackluster 2022, 23 was a hot year for stocks. The S&P 500 was up 24%. So how's your portfolio looking? Bet it's not looking as good as members of Congress because politicians crushed the market last year. Their performance smoked, and I mean smoked, professional money managers who do this all day for a living. Let's take a look back at 2023's best performing stock pickers in Congress. Thanks to stock market congressional expert and tracker Unusual Whales. Coming in at number one, Democrat Congressman Brian Higgins from New York. He was up a whopping 239%. And he's going out on top. He's leaving Congress in February. Smart.
Yeah, if he were really that good, if any of these guys were really just that good at beating the market, beating index funds, beating professional managers of major funds, wouldn't it stand to reason if Dan Crenshaw was so good at stock trading? And no, it's not the inside information we have access to ahead of time. I'm just really good at timing the market or picking out winners. If Crenshaw really cared about making more money because he complained he didn't make enough, why don't all these guys go out and create funds of their own? If they're that good, they can compete in the marketplace and say, look, I am, in this case, Representative Brian Higgins, or I am Representative Dan Crenshaw. Look at my resume. Look at how often I beat the market. Look how often I beat these other hedge fund managers. Look how often I beat the monkeys that type on the computer that also statistically can beat managers as well, because nobody knows unless they have the information ahead of time. If they were just that good and it was honest and it was fair, they would go manage funds worth trillions of dollars. I am not being hyperbolic. If Brian Higgins could do this every year, he would be a gajillionaire managing my retirement fund, because I would say, Brian, sign me up for a 200% return against the market. But amazingly, when these guys leave Congress, they don't repeat the same levels of success. It is not hard to see why. But let's keep going as then he names Dan Crenshaw.
Sitting in at number 2, Republican Congressman Mark Green from Tennessee, who was up 122% this year.
Sure, it's just a coincidence.
Democrat Senator Dick Blumenthal, also on the list of lawmakers who destroyed the market this year. He was up 68%. What about the Wolf of Washington? Nancy Pelosi, she came in 41 points above the S&P 500 this year. Well done, Nance. Paulie. Next is the man who really believes Biden talked to Hunter's business clients about the weather the whole time. Dan Goldman was up 53% this year. Attaboy, Danny. And then we have Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who beat the market by 13 points. Overall, Democrats outperformed Republicans by about 13 points. Our lawmakers made over $1 billion in financial transactions this year. A lot of them investing in companies that they had inside information on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what corruption looks like.
I'm going to say this, again, probably not very popular. Is this the most pressing issue in Washington, D.C.? Having inside information to these stocks that they can go out and buy and then outperform the market. This is a big problem. I wouldn't argue this is the worst of the corruption that we have over there. I would argue passing legislation that harms you as an American is far worse. But make no mistake, this is still bad. We should have answers about this. They shouldn't be allowed to trade individual stocks. That shouldn't even be a thing. I don't know who would disagree with that. If you get inside information, I said it before, I'll say it again, maybe you need that. I can't think of a reason why, but if you do, fine, pass legislation related to that, but just don't go trade on that information. This is not a controversial take, but again, Dan Crenshaw thinks you're an incel if you disagree with him on it. So that was the clip. Jesse Waters highlights Dan Crenshaw because, yes, he went after Democrats, he went after Republicans. These guys are making lots of money while they're supposed to just simply be representing you. And again, that is the problem. I am not sending you there to get rich. I am sending you there to represent me in Washington, D.C. as part of our constitutional republic, part of our representative democracy. But Dan Crenshaw didn't like getting called out. Dan Crenshaw's a child. Take a listen to this. I got 5 different clips to play here. So in response to that, which is factually true, again, they have to file all of these reports. It's not like Jesse Waters made up some numbers. Crenshaw goes over to Instagram in this case, and this was a couple years ago, so this was before X was as prominent as it was, where you were able to say things and call people out the way that we do now. He says, "Hey, you effing hack, if you're going to accuse me of literal corruption, get your facts straight and man up. Come accuse me to my face. You're an effing clown desperate for clickbait." Jesse Waters, all he did was say, your represented officials have access to information before you do, and then they seem to be making a lot of money off of it. We would all agree this is a problem, but Mr. Victim, Dan Crenshaw, says you're going after clickbait for telling the American people what is happening. Now, where Dan Crenshaw, this is such a leftist tactic, they take what is true and then they just talk about a kernel of truth to obfuscate the rest of the lies here. Accuse me of literal corruption. Number one, Jesse Waters did not come out and say this is literal corruption. And as I've said, it is not illegal for them to have that information and trade on it. I mean, big problem right there. If they actually cared about the problem, they would pass legislation to say, I can have this information, but I can't trade on it. So it's not literal corruption because it's not even illegal what they're doing. But Jesse Waters is saying, hey, look at this. Look at how rich your people are getting in D.C. Because they know things that you don't. That is a problem. It is not corruption in the legal sense, and he wasn't saying that. But Dan Crenshaw takes that kernel of truth and says, literal corruption, blah, 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 and that's not what we are even talking about. Here is a chart that Waters referenced. This is also a chart you can find on our Substack at theamericantribune.news. Like I said, I got 5 of these clips here. So this is the second one, and Dan Crenshaw's just tirade over on Instagram a couple years ago. This is the list that Waters is using. I'm pretty far down on it. Why choose me? Because he's an effing clown chasing clicks. He knows people will recognize me and react. Fair point. There are far worse on that list. The point is you're on the list, Dan Crenshaw. Why single you out? Because it's not just this. And this is what Crenshaw misses as well. Maybe if Dan Crenshaw believed in a limited government, if he believed in representing his constituents, if he didn't love every foreign war that he saw, if he didn't vote alongside Democrats, if he didn't authorize all these insane spending bills, maybe if Dan Crenshaw did everything else right, maybe he wouldn't have been on that feature from Jesse Waters. But guess what? We always knew that Dan Crenshaw was a snake as soon as he got into Congress, and so we already don't like him. So it would make sense that Waters focuses on him, because now we can just say, here is one more thing that this scumbag Crenshaw is doing. And again, it's not just this Dan Crenshaw, it is everything else you have done as well. We're sick and tired of all of it. We saw the video clips of you tripping reporters, screaming at kids, downplaying term limits and insider trading and calling us all stupid. The totality of all of your speech and all of your actions is why you got featured, because it was one more thing to pile on you, and rightfully so. But Crenshaw's not done. Then he goes on to say here, again, now some of the accusations on X were like, is he drunk at this point? Like, are you just that childish? Is your ego so fragile? Is your ego that important? So now Crenshaw plays more victim card. I'm a father of a young baby. He says, I'm sitting here trying to feed my 3-month-old, and this dirtbag millionaire at Fox is accusing me of being a criminal with zero evidence. Again, no one is accusing you of being a criminal for this. It is not illegal for insider trading, but that is my point. That is Waters' point. This system doesn't work. It needs to be fixed. It shouldn't be legal to do insider trading. No one's accusing you of being a criminal. He said, here are the S&P returns, and here are your returns, Crenshaw. This is a problem in Washington, D.C. Stop watching these mediocre entertainers. Stop letting wealthy elitists like Jesse Waters claim to be fighting for you. They live in Manhattan and can't stand normal people in red states. They think you're stupid. I just played a clip where Crenshaw literally calls people stupid. He calls his constituents stupid. He calls you, the American First voter, stupid. And then he's out there projecting all of this on Jesse Waters. All right, I'm going to continue in a second, but we got Cindy chiming in. Cindy writes, I'm so glad you opened my eyes to this man. Cindy, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. I am so glad too, and we couldn't have done it without X. Elon Musk, without purchasing Twitter, none of this happens. Number one, I don't think Donald Trump wins the election without Elon Musk owning X. And certainly number two, farther down the list, all of this exposure of these corrupt sellout rhinos doesn't happen either. Again, I did an episode on Joni Ernst with my business partner, Jason Robertson, on Freedom from the Press. You can find that at our main Rumble channel, the American Tribune. Just Joni Ernst doesn't get exposed the way she did. Certainly Dan Crenshaw doesn't get exposed the way he did. But we are all just fed up with it. And thank goodness that the internet is forever, because I can find all these clips on there. And again, sum total, Dan Crenshaw sucks. But here I am, I'm feeding my 3-month-old kid. I'm just trying to get by on this congressional salary. I'm just trying to get by on these outrageous stock returns. I'm so poor. Poor Dan Crenshaw. I could go get another job in the private sector, but I choose to represent you because I'm such a good person, apparently. Here he goes. Again, he's continuing. Put the phone down, Crenshaw. Losers like Waters grew up with a silver spoon. His family is made up of well-connected journalists and politicians, and for some reason, people are fooled into believing he's some genuine blue-collar conservative. Yeah, he's such a conservative, he cheated on his wife and then left her with twins while he went off with, I think it was a younger intern, was the report. Again, not defending Waters' personal decisions. I care that he's a well-connected, they all seem well-connected. If you want to have a spot on Fox, CNN, I think Taylor Lorenz is the best example from the New York Times and Washington Post, seems to be that journalism, back in the day, journalist was a blue-collar job. You were grinding it. You were looking for stories. You were on the beat. Nowadays, you just go to some fancy school. Mom and dad have lots of money, and then you get a chair in one of these studios. So I get it. All of journalism is corrupt. We've been saying that for a long time, though, Dan. Like, Jesse Waters doesn't crack the top 100 of corrupt journalists. Like, welcome aboard, buddy. Welcome to the team that says the media lies to you. Like, how out of touch do you have to be like, I'm onto something? Jesse Waters, silver spoon? Jesse Waters and the media lies to you? It's like, yeah. They all lie to us. Nobody's defending Jesse Waters necessarily, but when it comes to his report, the 2-minute segment I played about how you guys all make tons of money in Washington, D.C. on insider trading, I believe that. And I don't know if anyone thinks Jesse Waters is blue collar. We all know he lives in New York. Good looking dude, makes lots of money. I mean, fine. I guess that's fine. I don't have to trust him necessarily. all the time, but I can trust his report there because guess what? We all have access to the same information that says you make more money than the regular American in the stock market. That's all he was saying. But he brings in all these personal attacks. Don't trust him because he cheated on his wife. And then I'm sure Dan Crenshaw is mum when it comes to Donald Trump cheating on his wife. Oh, I support Donald Trump. Well, didn't you know that Donald Trump cheated too? Like, make up your mind, folks. What argument do you want to make? And then finally, because Dan Crenshaw can't help himself, his 5th Instagram post in this thread of insanity says, and let's be honest, Jesse Watters seems like the type of dude who pees sitting down. Was that helpful? Do you feel better, Dan, for writing that? Like, again, who cares? Who cares? But you're hurling these ad hominem attacks, these personal attacks on Jesse Watters, and all he did was say Dan Crenshaw, along with a lot of his congressional cronies on the Hill, are getting really rich off of information that you don't have access to. And then you got to ask yourself, too, again, we can belabor this point all day. Again, go to theamericantribune.news. We have a Substack on it about all the juicy information related to insider trading. And again, not illegal right now. That is also part of the point. Make it illegal to profit off of this information. It's simply astounding stuff. Simply astounding stuff, folks, on Dan Crenshaw. I'm just scrolling here. Again, these are the first world problems when you host a podcast live, going through my laptop to find video clips that we got from the internet. So many good things in our lives. So first world problems, I'm trying to figure out what to play for you folks next. I think it's time to go through the comments on Twitter. It's always going to be Twitter for me. It rolls off the tongue better. And I don't even know what you call a tweet nowadays. If anyone knows in the comments, let me know. Like, what do you call it? It's on X now. It's not Twitter. So is it a post? All right. Boomer side showing through for me for sure. Let us share this screen here. Let us just bask in the glorious comments on Dan Crenshaw's post. So here is where we got it from. I'm not going to read it out loud because, again, we're streaming on Facebook and YouTube. They don't like bad words. I mean, you can talk about doing things to kids all day long if it's from a leftist point of view, but you can't read these bad words. So Dan Crenshaw reacts to the video we saw. And again, it was Nick Sorter who exploded 3 million views. I think that's up like 500,000 views from even this morning when I was preparing for the podcast. And so the original tweet alongside the video said, DC sources tell me that Dan Crenshaw is spearheading the effort to get a pay raise for Congress. Last week, when he was asked about a stock trading, Crenshaw whined that members of Congress haven't had a pay raise since 2009. Crenshaw almost got his way with a pay increase for members, plus benefits being included in today's massive spending boondoggle. And recently, Crenshaw even said you have no way to better yourself as a congressman without being able to trade in stocks. Like, he said that. We played the clip. We're not making this up. Poor me. I make $180,000 a year. If I'm going to provide for my family, I need to trade on information that you don't have access to, my constituents. Tough for you. Good luck paying for your mortgage. Good luck buying a home in this environment. Good luck meeting all of your budgetary needs every month. I'm going to trade on inside information because I deserve it. All right, we're going to block Mina. This guy is responsible for loads of the garbage we see being thrown into spending bills, all for his own benefit. Time for Eye Patch McCain to go. Again, I chuckle at the name here. I'm not making fun of the eye patch, but I don't know, Crenshaw kind of invited it on himself at this point. Elon Musk commented on that video. He said, Congress should only get a raise when the budget is balanced. There's a novel idea. How about you guys don't deserve a 40% raise for doing what? We're in massive debt. You have crushed our freedoms. I mean, we need to do an episode on what was in that CR. Again, without X, this thing doesn't get squashed. Mike Johnson's out there touting the CR. They had things in there to allow for more tyranny in the next pandemic that will come at some point. They said, yes, government can absolutely force you to close down your business, lock you down in your home, force you to take things against your will and get pushed into your body. That was in there. But the pay raise is what we focused on because we're looking at Congress and we're saying, what have you guys done to deserve a pay raise? And again, to make the point, if it's a continuing resolution, a CR doesn't increase any government spending. A CR is a continuation of government spending. So is it a CR if you get a pay raise? Some of the comments on here, you got Gunther Eagleman saying Dan Crenshaw's rhino trash. He doesn't need a raise. His stock trades based on insider info should be enough. I will say that in addition to not getting a raise, when they can't balance a budget, they should not be allowed to run for re-election. I love that idea. You know what? If you can't do the one job I have voted for you to do, which, I mean, have a fiscally responsible government, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to run for re-election. Great idea there. Let's amend the Constitution. All right, but now we got to get into the Dan Crenshaw comment himself when he called you all incels, said you're a piece of S, you're trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel with these pathetic bottom feeders for clickbait. Notice that Dan, whenever he doesn't like something, you're just trying to generate clickbait revenue. It's bad for you, even if it were clickbait. It's bad for you to go after clickbait and try to feed your family. It's okay for me, though, to trade stocks with insider information because I have to feed my family. Double standard much, Dan Crenshaw? So here we go. This is where it gets hilarious. Yeah, get it right. Dan Crenshaw is an America Last, Ukraine First war pig who doesn't need a raise because of all the money he makes when he miraculously becomes a stock expert since joining Congress. Boom, nailed it. And I think I played this clip before. Anonymous coward like Cat Turk talking S without any evidence. I'm used to it. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw is so tough. I'm used to people pushing back. Sorry I was the guy fighting the wars that little bees like you would never dare to. One of us has actually served this country and continues to, while losers like you make money being trolls on social media. Again, the double standard there of you're not allowed to make money doing whatever else, but I'm allowed to make money with these stock trades is simply astounding stuff there. Dude got ratioed so bad. And then here's another one. Sorry, one comment wasn't enough. We haven't forgotten Eddie Gallagher. Look that name up. We also haven't forgotten your insider stock trading that has inflated your wealth far beyond what a congressional salary ever could, off the backs of your constituents. That is the other point to make. Dan Crenshaw is getting rich at your expense. At your expense. Foul mouth POS. Can't read the rest of that, but it's hilarious. And again, here's the community note here. Dan Crenshaw's net worth is estimated to be $1.5 million. Okay, I was wrong. I misspoke before. His trade volume is $313,000. That's the community note fact check over on X, not $20,000 like he claimed it was. His stock trades are up 44% this year. This guy chimed in a lot. Gunther Eagleman, great follow on X. Hey Dan, how much do you like your seat in Congress? We know everything about your slimy S, right? Kyle Becker writes, it's fine to unload like this when you're talking in a private setting to somebody who insults you to your face. Perhaps it's understandable when you're a private citizen engaging with a troll. But when you are a representative of the United States, you should represent your constituents. I am not sure a lot of them think this represents the way you talk to people who accuse you of misdeeds of controversial actions, even if you think they're wrong. Nick is actually doing you a favor by alerting you to what his sources in DC are saying about you. Address his sources and prove them wrong with evidence. Don't go after the messenger. Boom. You're a public servant. Show some deference to your constituents. Yep. Not a good look, Congressman. You sound unhinged. Yes. Cry harder. What a disappointment you've been. Yep, we had a Facebook commenter chime in on that. We had all such high hopes. Just another congressional leech. Yes. Pack your stuff, Crenshaw. The people are fed up with you. You'll have a real primary challenge this time. But you're right there speaking about it, saying either give me more money or I'll do what Pelosi is doing. And then you really think people are that stupid? Yes, he does. He thinks you are that stupid. All right, I got to delete some more stuff here. Block you. Annie is saying that you have a really nice profile. Text me if you would like to get acquainted. Folks, do not text Annie. Don't text Annie. We gotta clean up the chat here. I'm looking out for you folks by cleaning up the Facebook chat for just a second. Don't talk to them. They will steal everything from you. All right, we got one more comment to delete. Sarah, Milana, Annie, don't talk to them. Okay, folks, man, see, he just gets destroyed. There's a fantastic meme right there about the 40% pay raise. And I will say this, if Dan Crenshaw wants to make more money, go out and compete with your skill set in the private sector. Don't steal 40% of tax dollars to give yourself the raise. It is really that simple. But Dan Crenshaw hates you. He's in it for himself. And I think we've kind of run down the list pretty well of that today. I'm going through the final library. I think we played all the clips we wanted to play. Let's pop this up here one more time. This is what Dan Crenshaw thought would be a good idea to blast out onto the internet, showing his disdain for you once and for all. And again, the comment that was made earlier, if you disagree with that, if you don't agree with what his sources were telling you, maybe rebut the argument. But Dan Crenshaw has no argument. He resorts to name calling because he knows we're right. Deep down, Dan Crenshaw knows I am doing something that doesn't sit well with the American people. And again, the stock trading is not even the worst of Crenshaw. It is the things that he votes for. It is how he interacts with people. And this is just the icing, the cherry on top. Dan Crenshaw does everything that we hate about the establishment, literally everything. And so we are calling him out for it. And instead of him reflecting and saying, you know what, I'm going to do a better job of representing the American people. Tell you what, I will introduce a bill for term limits. Tell you what, I will introduce a bill to ban the access to insider trading. I will do better. I will vote for limited government. I will reach out to my constituents and I will speak to them respectfully. And I'll say, what do you people want? thank you for sending me to Washington, D.C. I will do what you send me to D.C. to do. That's all he has to do. But instead, he berates little girls. He trips reporters. He calls us all stupid. Dan Crenshaw has got to go. I'm going to put up the map one more time because this is Dan Crenshaw's district, just in case you missed it if you joined us late. Amazing how that works out. Gerrymandering. We have got to do something about gerrymandering. But with that, folks, I think we're going to sign off here. We did an hour of Dan Crenshaw. Couldn't even get to all of it. There is so much more on him. We could have spent more time on his voting record. Just understand, Dan Crenshaw does not vote in your interests. I think just what we saw today is representative of that. But I do appreciate you tuning in today. We are the American Tribune Live. If you're watching us on Facebook, I haven't even made a plug for this today yet, folks. If you're watching us over on Facebook, I stream on Facebook because that's where our audience is. That's where some great comments come from. But if you are on Facebook, you like the show, you want more rhino dirt, you want more rants against Democrats, you want current events, we kind of cover everything here. I had to do Dan Crenshaw today because, I mean, it was so easy. How do you not talk about Dan Crenshaw? We got to get the message out. We've got to wake up voters in the primaries. But if you like the program, if you want to tune back in, just know that we're here every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Central, and we stream it live on Rumble. Our Rumble channel is the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Just started it a couple weeks ago. If you like what you see and you want exclusive content, eventually our goal is to stream only on Rumble. That way I don't have to censor myself. If you're watching on Facebook, you saw the thumbnail. I had to block out stupid images. I can't say certain words. We can't talk about certain subjects. I had a YouTube video taken down a couple weeks ago because, God forbid, I talked about Fauci and RFK and Big Pharma. So they struck the channel. They removed our video. You can't watch it anymore over on YouTube, but you can watch it on Rumble because Rumble doesn't act that way. So head over to Rumble, go to the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Follow me on X. I'm at Todd Amtrib. It is an outrageous handle. That's what we're with, though, Todd Amtrib. And we're here, like I said, every Tuesday and Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Central. Kicking off the new year, I think we're going to move to a daily format. Maybe we talk for less. I can talk for a long time. Maybe we keep the same hour and a half format going. But again, I appreciate you tuning in. You have so many options out there to consume media now more than ever, especially on X. Everyone's got a podcast these days. If you chose to listen to me today, I appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Head over to Rumble. I'm going to say it one more time. The American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. Hit the follow button. Hit the like button on these videos and get notified every time we go live, again, at 9:30 a.m. Central, Tuesdays and Thursdays. But with that, folks, we are signing out of here. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Have a Merry Christmas. We'll be back next Tuesday, Christmas Eve Day. I believe that is the correct pronunciation of Christmas Eve Day. We'll do one more show to get everyone fired up as they gather with families and hopefully talk about a little bit of politics and rub it in your Democrat voting family members and friends' faces that you guys lost, and you're welcome because I voted for Donald Trump, and your life will be a little bit better in the next 4 years. But thanks, folks. Have a fantastic day. See you next Tuesday.
Starting on day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Great again. Great again.